Am I in the wrong for not apologizing to my friend after she screamed at me and my kid at her wedding? 2 weeks ago, I, female 29, hubby male 31, and son male 4, attended my BFF's female 28 wedding. It was a beautiful ceremony and everything was going great, until BFF and her husband cut the cake. Important context. BFF did speak to me during her wedding planning about being unsure on whether or not to allow kids at her wedding. Her 2 sisters both have kids around my son's age, and she sees him as her nephew too. But she wanted to be able to let loose and enjoy her wedding without worrying about any kids messing things up. I gave her my opinion, saying that me and my hubby allowed kids at our wedding and wouldn't have it any other way. The kids are still family and deserve to be included. After that, and speaking with her sisters, she and her husband okayed kids for the wedding. Now, the ceremony went swimmingly. BFF's nieces sat with me, hubby, and son as her sisters were at the bridal party. I brought quiet activities to keep them entertained and everybody behaved. I even cried from how lovely it was. When we got to the reception, nieces were returned to their parents, so it was just now me, hubby, and son. Dinner went fine, and then the couple took to the dance floor for their first dance. Afterwards, everybody was welcomed to the floor to dance for a bit before cutting cake. At this point, the kids were running around and playing with each other, and it was a fairly secure space, and I knew almost everybody there, so I felt comfortable letting my son play with the other kids while hubby and I had fun dancing. Hubby offered to DD so that I could enjoy myself, so I had a couple of glasses of wine at this point. BFF had also been drinking and celebrating. BFF and her husband go to do the cake cutting, and hubby and I are still a little slow getting there, so there was a crowd blocking our view. Suddenly, I hear her scream my son's name. Hubby and I push forward to see what's wrong. I see my son with frosting around his mouth and his fingers. The cake had a small chunk taken out of it. I try to apologize, but she turns around and yells, "This is your fault. Your son ruined my cake. He's only here because you told me it would be worth it to include kids." I yelled back, telling her it was just an accident and that the rest of the cake was still edible. That this was her nephew she was screaming about. She told me that I was no friend of hers and he wasn't her nephew, in front of everyone. She told me to leave or she'd call security. Son and I were crying at this point and the 3 of us left. One of the bride's sisters reached out to me after and apologized for her sister's reaction, but said that I needed to apologize. I think sorries are out of the window now after her outburst. I told her sisters so and said I expected an apology first before I'd say anything to her. Not only did she blow up at me in front of everyone, but at my son. I'm humiliated but even more angry on his behalf. So, am I in the wrong if I refuse to apologize first?
Am I the arsehole for leaving my ex homeless? Story time. So, me and my boyfriend, who we'll call Steve, had been together since high school. At this point, we were in the depths of planning our wedding. Up until 2 weeks ago. This is when I found out that Stevie boy, Steven was having an affair. Steve. Have we not learned? So one day I'm sat at home and I noticed that Steve is getting loads of text messages come through on his Apple Watch, and they are all from his mum. They were not slowing down, so I'm thinking, God, something horrific has happened. And I decided I'm just going to check and see what's going on, check his watch. And that is when I realised that these messages were definitely not from his mum. They were actually from some random girl who was expressing how excited she was to hook up with Steve that night. Steve thought he was being big and clever by naming this girl Mum in his phone so that I wouldn't cotton on. And when he got home, he was desperately trying to find this Apple Watch, right? My guy was panicking. He's like throwing stuff around. He's pulling all the cushions off the sofa, asking me if I'd seen it. I was like, no, babe, not me, sorry. For this, I decided I was purposely gonna get more distant with him, which made him then panic even more. Shame. Steve then is ringing up every person he knows to see if he's left his watch at their house, in their car or whatever. And he rings his friend, Alan. Alan, later that day, gives me a call. And he had the decency to tell me that Steve was, in fact, having an affair. Alan was like, I'm so sorry. Listen, if there's any way I can help, please do let me know. I said, Alan, babe, don't worry about it. I'm already planning the revenge. So it was actually pretty decent timing. Our apartment lease was about to be up. So I start packing all of my things. I also thought I'd take the liberty of removing all the money from our shared account. When he got back, I was sat on the sofa. I had all my suitcases around me. Just grabbed my suitcase and started to walk through the door. I didn't say a word. Steve started losing his mind. He was chasing after me, asking where it was I was going. I just didn't say anything. Got in my car and I drove over to my brother's for the evening. This morning, I woke up to multiple messages from Steve asking why our rent wasn't paid. That's interesting, Steve. Apparently, there was even someone stood outside the door banging, telling him that they needed to escort him off the property. Oops. And he's now going around telling every single member of our family, my family, his family, that he is homeless because of me. Interesting take on the situation, Steve. Everyone apart from my sister and my own mother agree that he got what he deserved, but they are saying that it was way too harsh what I did. They said that I should never have taken my money, the money from the joint account, which I had earned, and I should have just given that to Steve for him to find a place of his own. That makes sense. My mum even went as far as to say that if I didn't give Steve a chance, she would cut me out of her will. I said, well, not to be funny, Mum. If Steve really is homeless, I know a girl that is really excited to see him, so you can go stay with her. So what do you think? Am I wrong here?
My ex tried to cheat on me, so this is what I did. So my ex would always sleep with his phone on his pocket, which I always thought is a red flag, obviously. Like, I knew that every girl would, but I just didn't think anything of it. And so one night it slipped out of his sweats probably, and I woke up with it near my legs. He was still asleep. I was going to honestly put it on the charger, but I saw a bunch of messages from a dating app. I was obviously furious and I wanted to slap him awake, but I didn't. I decided I was going to be smarter than that. So started thinking, what can I do? Like, what can I possibly do in the situation? What can I possibly do that is going to be, a good enough revenge? So I decided I was going to create a fake profile. So I asked one of my friends that he hadn't met to send me, I asked her if I could use her pictures to create a fake dating profile so I could see if we matched, to see, if I could get a nice revenge. She was 100% his type. I knew that, they would match. I knew that he was going to match with her. So that's what happened. So my fake profile and him, we started talking. Obviously, I'm blinded with aggression and adrenaline inside of me all the way through this. We started talking, flirting and everything. So I suggest we have to go full force with this. So I suggest, after a lot of flirting, that we should meet up. I suggested he paid us a hotel room, and he said yes. Mind you, he is unemployed. I've been providing for this relationship, or in this relationship, since he's been unemployed. So he's been draining my savings account for about a year. Now he accepts to pay for a random girl's hotel room. He'd be so manipulative with it. He'd make me feel really guilty if I didn't help him with money. Like, he'd be like, we're family. This is what family's supposed to do. We're supposed to help each other when we're going through tough spots. I'm gonna do another part because this is too long, but let me just leave you with this. After he had talked to this girl and we had arranged the hotel room and everything, he comes and he asks me, the real me, not the dating app me, for $50 because of his mom's birthday. He has the balls to ask me for money, $50. And I, at this point, it's just funny to me. So I give him $50. And I still remember that stupid smile on his face after I give him the $50 for his mom's birthday. And so he leaves for the weekend to go to his mom's, and he doesn't go to his mom's. So as I was saying, he leaves to go to his mom. I kiss him goodbye, tell him to have a great time. I'm putting on the performance of my life, acting like the perfect girlfriend that just gave her boyfriend $50 so he could buy his mom a gift. By the way, look at this cute blush. I love buying makeup, like travel size makeup, just to have it because I think it's so cute. This is the NARS Orgasm one. It's so cute. So then I get to work. I pack all of the stuff that he had in my house, and I leave all of his stuff outside. Meanwhile, he is messaging the other me, my friend, apparently, like my friend's pictures, me. I don't even know how to say it, on the app, and I give him excuses. I keep giving him excuses like, oh, I'm running late. I'm sorry. I just want to look perfect for you. I'm sorry. Also, my friend was a real one. I even asked her to send me some sexy pictures so that I could keep him, telling him I was trying to look perfect and stuff to make it more realistic. So basically, I make him sit and wait until it's 1 a.m. And at 1 a.m., so at this point, after I had made him wait enough, I send him pictures of his belongings outside of my house being rummaged through by a homeless person. with the caption, "Enjoy your stay at a hotel." Obviously, he calls me right away, and as soon as my phone rings, I hang up and block his number and go to bed. So Monday comes, and after work, I come home, and I was already expecting something like this, and he's at my door, and he was ugly crying, begging, telling me he was homeless, he had nowhere to go. So I wasn't having it, obviously, and he got angry, as per usual, and when he started trying to grab me and tried to get inside the house, that's when I called the police. So yeah, and I filed a restraining order against him because he did threaten my life, and yeah, now I know he has moved. He is living a few hours away from here. He lives with his family, and I heard he has a job, so I hope he learned the lesson.
My ex got revenge on me in the worst way possible, and I have no way to clear my name. Last year, I cheated on my ex-girlfriend of 8 years, Annie, with a colleague, Jess, who I now have a 3-week-old son with. I have no excuse. It cost me my job and the majority of my friendships, along with the love of a good woman. I deserved it all, and I have never expected any sympathy for my actions. Annie delivered my stuff to my parents' house before I even knew she knew about the cheating. She didn't even confront me. She just cut me out of her life without a word. I messaged everyone we knew, begging them to ask for her to talk to me. And I sent hundreds of messages telling her how much I regretted everything and I wanted her back. I never got a response. Jess saw the messages, and it obviously caused issues between us in the beginning, but she fell pregnant quickly, so we moved past it for the sake of our family together. Which we both wanted. I am 100% committed to the relationship and haven't even looked at another woman since things settled down. In the final stretch of Jess's pregnancy about a month ago, I saw Annie in a shop for the first time since the breakup. She was pretty cold towards me, but said that a few months ago she found a keychain my granddad got me when I was very young. It's not valuable, but she knows it means a lot to me, and she said I could come collect it the following Saturday morning. I explained that was 6 days after Jess was due to give birth, so I'd probably need to be home, but she just said I could either get it on Saturday or it was going in the bin, so I agreed a time to go over. My son was born a few days late, but he's perfectly healthy and wonderful, so he was less than 24 hours old on the Saturday I needed to collect the keychain. I planned to pop in on the way to the hospital, but when I got to my old house, Annie invited me in to talk about how things ended between us. I thought we had a good conversation and that both of us walked away with closure. She let me apologize for the way that I treated her, wished me the best with my new family, and hugged me as I left. I admit I held on tightly for the hug, but it was purely because of a relief, not lingering feelings. I spent less than an hour at her house, then headed to the hospital. I didn't tell Jess about any of this because I know she still feels insecure about Annie, and I didn't want to add fuel to that. When I arrived at the hospital after seeing Annie, Jess had revoked my access, and the ward manager wouldn't tell me why. I ended up being removed by a security guard because I was denied seeing my son for the second time ever, and I didn't respond well to being blindsided. I tried calling Jess and her mom over and over, and the only response I got was a screen recording of a message from Annie. It was a doorbell footage of me walking through the door at 9:30 and then back out just after 10:15. And the hug is only partly caught, so it does look like we could have been kissing. The message Annie sent with it said, "Did he even shower and change his clothes between me and holding his son? Congratulations on being stuck with him for the next 18 years. I hope it's everything you dreamed of." No one believes this is a setup at all. It's something I would never have expected from Annie, and no one else would either. So they're completely rejecting the idea that this is a lie. I sent her a message asking why she did this, assuming I'd still be blocked. Her response was that she wasn't going to let me play innocent, and that I may have deleted all of our messages over the past few months, but she hasn't. Obviously, there are no messages, but she blocked me again straight after, so I have nothing at all to exonerate myself with. She waited in silence for almost a year, then took the most cruel and vindictive revenge she possibly could. I have met my son once, minutes after he was born, and now Jess is refusing any contact with me and won't let me see him. Court will take months, and my heart hurts every minute of every day. I know what I did to Annie was horrible, but I don't deserve this. I have no one to talk to about it because not even my own mother believes me. Her only question was why I ruined my life with a babe when Annie was willing to reconcile, and that's about the most supportive thing she said to me since I was dumped. The few friends who stuck with me are assuming the worst too, and it's killing me that not a single person I know sees this for what it is. Everything is ruined.
I went vegan at 11 years old and stayed vegan for 6 years. I'm not anymore, but let's talk about it. Basically, I was vegan for all of my teenage life up until 16. In year 11, halfway through, I quit. I stopped being vegan. And I didn't really think anyone would care because I don't really talk about it that much, but every time I mention it, I always get a lot of comments asking to talk about it, so I guess you guys want to hear. So here it is. So I went vegetarian in year 5. My parents did not force me. I was eating chicken wings. I distinctly remember I bit into the wing, like my teeth touched, and I was like, oh my God, this is an animal. I was like, I want to go vegetarian. So I did, and then my parents did the same. Then my dad did the Kokoda trek in Papua New Guinea, and he decided he wanted to go vegan just like for more health and fitness reasons. And then my mum followed, and then I followed, but I was not forced. We did eat vegan in my house, but I chose. I loved animals. Like, I was such a little activist. So in year 6, I went vegan, and my parents and I, we started volunteering for Sea Shepherd, which, if you don't know, they're like a marine, they look after the seas, after animals in the sea, I'll say. But yeah, me and my parents, I'm an only child, we spent every single weekend volunteering for Sea Shepherd. I loved it. I had an Instagram called Lucy the Vegan. Everyone that knows me, that's just a bit of a meme because that was my Instagram for a while. I wanted to be a vegan activist to get famous from it. I wanted to spread the word about loving animals. Which I think, like, if you didn't know me then, I think it's really weird seeing me now and seeing that that's how I was, I guess. But eventually, I think year 8, I had my rebrand and I stopped being Lucy the Vegan, but I was still Lucy the Vegan. I was still very much so vegan and very much so into it. I moved schools. I stayed vegan. It was really easy for me because my whole family and household, because I'm an only child, was vegan. So there wasn't really that much stress. But when I do think about it, I probably did miss out on, like, a lot of things. And not miss out. Like, I didn't fucking miss out on life. There's just, like, you know, vegan alternatives aren't as good. So, like, the things that you would want to eat, you just weren't eating, I guess. But I always thought I'd always be vegan. Like, it was a thing, like, I could not have pictured myself not being vegan. It was really, like, I'm going to marry someone vegan so that my kids will be vegan because that's how I was. Like, that was my mindset. I was like, it should be that way. Halfway through year 11, I went through a breakup. Why was this the catalyst for me starting to eat meat? I don't know why. I think I was, like, very much so having, like, a 8 for life crisis at this point. And I was like, yep, I'm not vegan anymore. I went vegetarian. It was probably from, like, the place of, like, oh, maybe he'll notice me that I'm not vegan anymore. What a fucking dumb 16-year-old. Who was she? He's going to see this and fucking laugh. But anyway, Lucy the Vegan was no more. I reckon I was vegetarian probably up until the start of year 12. And then I went out one night and I wanted fucking cheeseburger. I ordered a cheeseburger from McDonald's. They're still my addiction. I have them way too often. And then it was just over. Like, I've had steak since. I've tried everything. It's weird, but I'm not vegan anymore. That's how I stopped being vegan. That's how I went vegan. I think another reason why I'll put it down to me stopping as well is I feel like with COVID, it was very much so, like, I couldn't get out and do like the activism things that I was doing. I don't know what I'm trying to say there. And I guess I kind of lost passion for it. And I feel like COVID was probably a bit of a time where it's like, what is life? Like, what are we doing? We're living on a floating rock. And I think I probably just stopped caring a bit, which is sad. My parents both are still vegan. So at home, I do eat vegan. My parents, like, my mum's pretty passionate about it. She doesn't love me bringing non-animal products into my house just because she doesn't want to, like, support the industry, which is fair enough. But yeah, I could begin being vegan one day. I think it is kind of hard because I'm kind of getting to try all these foods that I never really tried before. And some of them, like, my favorite foods now. So, like, it might be hard to go back. But I do still feel for the animals, I guess. And I feel like that is still, like, a part of who I was. And I do still have those feelings. But I kind of just try and shut it off, which I feel guilty about. So I'm not saying I won't go vegan again. But at this point in time and for the foreseeable future, it's probably not on my radar or going to be happening. Veganism definitely does get a bad rep. And I can see why, because a lot of the vegan activists are very in your face, but almost all the vegans I know, me, myself included, and even my parents, aren't pushy about it. My mum's pushy about it to me, but not to everyone else. Like, we just live our own lives. Like, that's what we do. We're trying to contribute to something. You do what you want to do. We're not going to push it. I wasn't like that. And yeah, I had Instagram and was posting about it, but I was never like, you need to fucking go vegan, you fucking bitch. Like, that was not the vibe. But yeah, also, I didn't buy leather. So, like, all my shoes were weird. Like, I didn't have any leather shoes. I couldn't, like, participate in any, like, of shoe trends because I didn't buy leather. I did shop cruelty free, and I do still try and shop cruelty free for my makeup because I do think that's, like, important. Like, animal testing is not cool. But yeah, that is why I went vegan, why I stopped, all your questions answered.
My brother doesn't understand why I won't come to a naturist resort for his wedding.
I see.
My philosophy is that I don't care what others do as long as someone isn't hurting or infringing on my rights or the rights of others. Whatever consenting adults do in their private lives is none of my concern. This extends to my brother and his fiance being naturists. However, I do take an issue with them being angry that I won't attend their wedding. They are having their wedding and reception at a naturist resort. They met there, and I understand it holds significance for them. I even checked if nudity is a requirement for the ceremony and reception, or if it's regular wedding attire. It's a requirement to be nude though, just like all other times at the resort. I've offered to pay for a separate reception for them, however. This just made them even angrier. I'm not comfortable being in nude in front of a large crowd of strangers, either at the wedding or in the resort period. I was asked to be a bridesmaid, even though I don't know my brother's fiance well enough to be friends. I moved to Darwin from Adelaide for work before my brother met her. I'm definitely not comfortable walking up the aisle arm in arm with a groomsman I've never met when we're both nude, or standing in front of everyone during the ceremony, or being in all photographs when I'm nude. My brother's fiance said if she looked like me, she would go nude all the time. I'm not saying being a naturist is wrong. I'm not saying they should not get married at a naturist resort. I'm just uncomfortable with attending the wedding if I'm required to be nude for it. I don't know about his fiance's family, but some of my siblings and cousins or their spouses are also uncomfortable. My parents are no longer with us, so I can't ask them for advice. I'm just wanting to get off my chest how I feel about my brother not understanding my discomfort with this.
Ex left me for a good friend, so now I'm going to meet and work with their favorite artist. Last year, my partner of many years who I was ready to propose to and marry, and one of our good friends started getting far more close than I was really comfortable with during a period I was working long and hard to provide for us. She started getting distant and they were cozying up. Eventually, they tried to guilt me into accepting a polyamorous relationship, which I wasn't cool with. And when I ultimately put my foot down on the idea, she ended up choosing them over me. My ex tried to turn the entire friend group against me, which didn't work but did scar me mentally. And I found out a lot of other terrible things she had been doing, like using my money for parties or spending it on her now current partner. She consistently trashed me on social media when I never talked bad about her, even after all the hurt and pain I went through. I went through a massive depressive episode that I'm still struggling with today, losing my business, sanity, and even my human will to live. It was the darkest time of my life for this and some other reasons. But I kept reminding myself that I have to outlive my enemies, and a life well lived is the best revenge one can have. So I set the plan in motion. There is a very famous DJ my ex has a huge tattoo for and absolutely loves more than anything. And her new partner is a massive fan as well. I believe they even traveled to go see said artist recently. And while I had this plan for a while, I kicked into overdrive and finally got it done after finding that out. I worked many years as a videographer and photographer in the touring music world. It was a dream that I eventually gave up to be at home more and focus on building our relationship more as I got older. During my career, I worked with some decently known artists and built a few important connections. I opened up my old contacts list and went down the rabbit hole until I was able to get in contact with the DJ's team and get set up to be paid handsomely for doing touring work. Running fan meetups, managing their Instagram content, etc. My work and name will be promoted all over the socials for my ex and her partner to see, and you best believe I'll be taking plenty of selfies. And while my original motivation was pure spite, I am super excited to be following my dreams again and getting another opportunity to be a creative. Plus, meet so many amazing new people on the road again.
Accidentally slept with my best friend's dad, and my baby is going to be her auntie. Story time. I have known my best friend Amy since we were kids. She knew all of my family. I thought I knew all of hers. I have recently given birth to my beautiful baby girl. One fateful night 9 months ago, I had a one-night stand with a guy that was a lot older than me. It was a one-time thing. He was in his late 70s. No idea what his name was. I didn't know anything about this guy. So because of how close we were, my best friend decided to throw a little party so that all of her family could meet my baby. So I'm at the family party, everything's going really, really well. I'm looking around, saying hi to everyone I know. And then I look around and I see the man that I had a one-night stand with. Safe to say, we were both just as shocked as each other to see one another. We just decided telepathically to ignore each other. I'm like to my best friend Amy, like, who's that guy? Who is that? I've not seen him before. And that's when she dropped the bombshell that it was in fact her granddad. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I was like, I thought your grandma and granddad were still together. She was like, no, my grandma's husband isn't actually my granddad. Her real granddad left her grandma when she was a lot younger, so she saw her grandma's husband as her granddad. So at one point, granddad comes up to me and congratulates me on the baby. I was like, hee hee, thank you. And then he asked me who the dad was. He was like, why haven't you brought him? I didn't need to bring him, he was already going to be here. And that is when I had to break the news to my best friend's granddad that he was in fact the father. He then went on to tell me that he really, really wants to have a part in his daughter's life. So I guess the issue now is, how do I tell my best friend that I slept with her granddad? So the thing is with this one, I think you're just going to have to come out and say it. Both single, no one's cheated. It was a one night random fling. Shit happens. Do you know what I mean? He is stepping up to the plate. He's wanting to be a part of the family. And it just means that you'll get to see your best friend more.
Let me tell you the story time of the worst thing that ever happened to me at work. I've had about 5 jobs in my lifetime, and this one was when I worked at Cheap Store, which was probably my favorite job out of all of them. I loved Cheap, but this shift was not it. So basically, I was 16 at this point, and I'd just been like promoted to team leader. Like literally, I want to say a few days or like the week before this happened was my training shift, and it was very brief. Like I would have had more, but then both my managers got COVID. And we had quite a small team. So it was my 2 managers, another team leader, and now me. And the other team leader had another job, and she could only work on Sundays. And it was in the school holidays. And so we've just got this whole week to fill. And this was in 2021. So the COVID laws were still really strict. Like they could not come to work. And they lived like an hour away from our store. So it was not good. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I ended up working a 40-hour week that week, or almost, which is crazy because I was 16 and I felt so profesh. The reason this went downhill so quick though is I think it would have been the Wednesday. So I'd work the Monday, the Tuesday, the Wednesday, 4-day shifts, open and close. And I was just not feeling great. I got there, I'm like, oh, I can't do this. I'm ringing the other team leader and I'm like, do you reckon you could come in? And she's like, no, I can't. It's my only day off. I'm so sorry. Like I've got plans. And I was like, oh no. So I ring my manager who's got COVID and I'm like, what do I do? Because I was shitting myself. Like I literally was running back and forth to the toilet and crapping myself. Luckily our store was right next to the Westfield toilet. He was like, you can't like close the store, like you can't go home, no one can cover for you, you're just gonna have to sit there. He's like, you can literally sit in the storeroom and do nothing, but like you've just gotta like be there. And I'm like, oh my god. So I'm 16, I'm like, ah. Surprisingly, this is where it gets bad. So I go down to the chemist to get some like gastro stop or whatever I can get my hands on, and it was literally like, you don't even have to ask the counter, you don't have to go to the counter to get it, but I couldn't see it, so I had to go to the lady at the counter. Do you want to guess who that lady was? One of the ladies I'd encountered on my many endeavors to the toilet. So like, and she saw me walking out that store and I remembered her because she gave me such a look. And then I had to go to her for it, and it was literally so humiliating. I was like that lady knows me better than anyone. She was privy to everything. Yeah, and that was probably the worst shift at any job of my life. Like,
pretty much me and my ex broke up because he wanted to move to New York, I wanted to move to Miami. I'm sitting here in New York now, he is still in Nashville. It was a whole thing, whatever. Couldn't talk about this at the time. Obviously there were other reasons that we were breaking up. That would be crazy if that was the only reason. I was just talking to my friend about this and she was like, it's definitely been enough time that you can now talk about that relationship, because you cannot deny that I barely talk about my Nashville ex. Like that is for a reason. But now that it's been so long, I feel like I can give you some insight on what that relationship looked like. Before I even did social media, I was making more money than any other kid I knew at that age. I had like a really crazy corporate job, and my ex was making pretty much minimum wage at his corporate job, and he resented the fuck out of me for that, you guys. It was constantly complaining about the fucking money. If you're a follower of mine, you know that I grew up really poor, so I was like trying to escape that. Like I had no need to stress about money, and he was stressed about it all of the time. So that had me in literal misery, but then on top of it, he was also like really fucking competitive. And the story I'm gonna tell you is a perfect example of like where his head was at. As I just said, I was making bank, so I went and bought myself a Mercedes-Benz. I was freaking out about it. I still have it to this day. It is my prized possession. I love this fucking vehicle. Like I just said, I grew up really poor, so this Benz was like a huge deal to me. I was freaking out. And like I said, I was making a lot more money than my ex, so I could afford a Mercedes-Benz, right? Whatever. I pull up in the Benz and he's literally like this. pissed, dude. Like, pissed when I pulled in with this Mercedes. I'm driving him around in my new car after having it for maybe an hour. I see him sitting in the passenger seat fucking moping the entire time. I'm like, what? What is the problem? He's like, nothing. It's just embarrassing. Like, what? My girlfriend's gonna drive this and I'm gonna drive my 99 Ford. Made the entire thing about him as if I bought the car in spite of him. And then 2 days later, I get home from work and he texts me and says, come outside. I'm like, okay. Well, he pulls up in a sports car. He went and bought a brand new Camaro. And like I just said, homeboy didn't have any money and already was stressed about finance. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, bro, because after that he hated me because I could afford my car and he could not afford this car. He would cry about the fact that he bought this car. Like, no one made you go buy a sports car just because I bought one. But yeah, I've been dealing with